Welcome to the Perth Property Pod, episode 5, that of real estate negotiating using an offer and acceptance. So, welcome to Joe Mucci.
Thanks, Alan.
And Alan Bourke, as on behalf of Bourke's. This episode is designed to give you an understanding of what an offer and acceptance form is. Offering, what is the process, how do we go about it, and try and inform you of the process so you're better able to negotiate a better price if you're selling a property. Joe, does an offer and acceptance have to be in writing?
Good question, Alan. Yes, an offer has to be in writing to be negotiated on with the seller, but you can make verbal offer on a property.
Someone said a verbal offer isn't worth the paper it's written on.
No, that's not true. Verbal offers must be communicated to seller at all times, no matter what. So, yes, you can make an offer, but for it to actually be negotiated on, it needs to be in writing, that is written on a piece of paper, whether it be digitally or by hand, so that the owner can accept, negotiate or counter from that point on. But as agents, we have a legal obligation to communicate all offers, whether they be written or verbal, to our sellers.
Okay, so what is the paper? The piece of paper is called contract for sale by way of offer and negotiation, or offer and acceptance. I've got the wrong name. Offer and acceptance. Yes. So when you look at a contract is really two elements. One is an offer from a buyer, and when that is fully accepted on all terms and conditions, and the buyer signs it and the seller signs it, at that point you have contract. Now, unlike the eastern states where they then employ lawyers to draw up a contract after the event, that is our contract, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep. So there's no other pieces of paper. We're very blessed here in WA to have a very easy process, and buyers understand it, sellers understand it, settlement agents come in the last sort of 20, 30 years and have revolutionised the conveyancing market and make it much easier and very low cost for our buyers and our sellers. So, a piece of paper, an offer and acceptance. So let's say a buyer decides, yes, I want to put an offer into a seller, and they put out this piece of paper. We obviously help them with that. They don't do it on their own. What are some of the elements in an offer, Joe?
So obviously from top to bottom or from start to finish, the offer entails generally the agent's details and whoever the agent is that is writing the contract. But from there it starts off with the buyer's details, their address. We work through deposit, then when that's paid and who is holding that deposit, generally being the agent who has the listing.
Trust account.
Trust account, yes. Then it runs through what is the purchase price that you're offering. Then it steps through a settlement period, whether it's cash or finance, then through to conditions, and then there's obviously some finer print which takes you through the finance clause, and then signing of the offer, executing the offer from the buyer and the seller, and settlement agent details.
Okay, good. Let's drill then into some of the conditions that you as a buyer might put on an offer and acceptance to protect yourself. Okay, so there's really three that are used all the time. One is a building structural report, and assuming it's not an apartment sitting up in the sky, but normally if you're buying a green title standalone home, you would get a building or structural report on the home, wouldn't you?
Yes, you would. Very important. Yep.
Okay, so the costs of that, $500-600, something like that?
Depending on the size of the house, but yeah, your average price is probably around the $600 mark these days.
Okay, so that's done by a qualified builder, engineer, architect. You decide who that is to represent you if you're the buyer, and you authorise them to inspect the property. So sometimes they're in cahoots with a white ant or termite company, and the two of them come at the same time. But there are two separate inspections, aren't there?
Yes, the next important one would be a termite inspection, and termite and timber pest inspection.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's done generally at the same time. I think in WA being mostly sand, it's probably a very advisable thing for most buyers to have one done. And again, as you said, apartments generally are not something we see a timber pest inspection on, but if the buyer has something that they want, they are entitled to do so.
Cool. So let's drill back into the building report.
Yes.
If you're worried about something like the roof line or whatever it be, you can certainly give your engineer, builder, and whatever else, special instructions to check out such and such. But they normally take it from the subfloor all the way to the top of the roof, and go right through it, taking photos and whatever else. Their aim is to identify major structural faults, all right? So that if you've got a hole in the gutter or a hole in the downpipe or you've got a leaky tap or something, that's not really a condition of a building structural report. It's just to make sure and put your mind at ease that the home is structurally sound.
Absolutely. And look, it's a good point with these reports, and we've seen many over the years, that you will get a list of what we call maintenance items.
Yep.
And I think it's a great part of the investment that you're making to check that, as you said, the home doesn't have any structural or major structural faults, that you have an understanding or a line in the sand of where the property is at, anything that may need maintenance in the next coming months to years, and it gives you a snapshot of the home, overall.
Yep. And termite pests have changed. Again, 20, 30 years ago, the seller provided the white ant certificate. Nowadays, the buyer organises their own white ant certificate, because if for some reason they found white ants in the property, they then have redress against the contractor to say, well, hey, we found this, you've got to spray them or make good the damage if there's any damage created by termites.
Yes.
But it's a little bit broader. This 2359 elaboration of the standard for the timbers is not just termites. It's also timber rot and timber infestation as well, isn't it?
I think
it could be borers and other things. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's it could be rotting barge boards near gutters or things like that. That's all covered under the timber inspection report. Now, the third condition you normally put on offering acceptance is a good working order condition. All right, what does that involve?
Basically, it's saying all electrical, plumbing, gas fixtures and fittings will be in good working order at the time of settlement.
Okay, so when would the buyer inspect the property and check that out?
We do here in WA what we call a final inspection, which is done generally within a week prior to settlement. Some buyers want it closer than a week, and that inspection is done with yourself and the agent to go around and make sure the property is in the same condition as when you purchased it, and to make sure that everything's in good working order. But we must note that that's only a warrant.
Warranty.
Warranty or warrant.
Yep.
So those issues that may arise, that let's say a auto ignition on a gas a hot plate doesn't work, or
They never do.
That's why I brought it up.
Yep, they never work.
Or it could even be that the hot water system stops working. Those things cannot hold up settlement. They are a warrant or warranty, so that's up for the agent to organise as quickly as they can to get those things rectified. Obviously, our goal is to get them done before settlement, depending upon when parts and trades are available. These things can happen after settlement date. And then again, depending upon the cost of that item, should it be a hot water system that might be a couple of $1,000s, there is an option that you might get your settlement agent to hold back funds as security, but in most circumstances we can get these things sorted before settlement and on settlement.
We've got enough time to do so. The other part of it is you don't need a condition of this, it's actually legislation to do with the hardwired smoke detectors and the RCDs.
Yes.
It's now a requirement, and has been so probably for 3 to 5 years, that any property that gets sold or leased must have 2 RCDs, which are residual currency devices. They're basically, what are the switches they call them?
Safety switch. Yeah, one switch. Power, one colour's lights.
Exactly right. Plus you need hardwired smoke detectors in the property. In the olden days, battery smoke detectors were sufficient. Nowadays, they've got to be hardwired, or if they can't be hardwired, then they've got the 10-year battery in them, haven't they? Exactly right. So you don't need to have that as a condition on the offering acceptance. That is legislation and must happen anyway. The only other conditions you may, if you need to sell a property, there is a subject sale clause. We don't see a lot of these in today's market because we're in a competitive environment, and a subject sale would come probably third after a cash offer or a subject to finance offer, and would suggest to most people go off and organise some sort of home-to-home loan until you sell your own home. But you can make a subject sale offer on a property and says, look, I want to sell my home, and will you give me a period of time to do so? But 99% of the time, the owners will say, yes, look, happy to accept that, but I'm not taking my property off the market, and I'm going to give you a 2 working day clause. What does that involve?
That involves that they'll accept your offer on the basis, as you said, that they'll continue to market their property. Should they receive another offer that is as good or better than your offer, they will give you notice of 48 hours to basically make
Two working days. Yep.
2 working days
Yep.
to make your offer unconditional, and whether that means you get an unconditional offer on your property to purchase it, or you come up with the cash, whether via bridging loan or you take it out of a facility that you might have, and then that way you can make good on the contract that you've made on their property and be completely unconditional within those 2 business days.
Okay. So let's just discuss putting an offer in and what price do you offer. Now, in today's world, it's hard for a lot of the buyers because there is no stated price. It is either best offer or it might be early, mid or late millions or whatever it be. How does the buyer gauge what price to offer?
I think what's important with any process, particularly in real estate, is communication. So getting advice from this listing selling agent, talking to them about where expectation might be, looking at what recent sales are. And as you said, in this market, and particularly in the last few years, these no price marketing campaigns are everywhere. And we're seeing a lot more, opportunities for sellers to maximise that price by using no price campaigns. So it is important to have the chat with the listing and sales agent. Say, look, we're very interested in making an offer. We need a price guide. We need an understanding of where we've got to come in.
Yep.
And hopefully you've done enough research within that area to know where homes are selling, what's going on within that space.
Okay. So let's say you put an offer in. Let's pick a figure, $950,000. All right, you're the only offer in, and you're ready to go. Then you get a phone call from the agent saying, well, look, sorry, there's now, in the meanwhile, in the last number of hours, there's 2 more offers coming in. What would you do then?
And you need to obviously sit down with whoever's involved in buying the property and decide on a number that you're happy to put forward, so putting your best foot forward, and that you know that if you did not get that number accepted, that purchase price accepted, that you would walk away comfortable that you've given it everything you've got.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, it's
no regrets.
No regrets, absolutely, well said. And that's important. And we're in a multiple offer situation, and that's again where we're at in June 2023. You really need to be doing that in one counter offer, so one more further increase. You don't expect that the agent's going to come back to you and give you a second or third chance. It's just not going to happen. And it is I always say, please, for example, Alan, I need to get your best and final walkaway price that you're happy to miss out on this property on. And that's where it is at. No regrets.
No. If you missed it by 10,000 or 20,000, really you shouldn't get all that upset. If you missed it by $1,000, you would, wouldn't you?
You would.
So if only I knew there was $1,000, I probably would have been able to scrape $1,000 up.
And that does happen.
Okay, so let's go back to the actual contract nature of things. You've got an offer and acceptance. Let's say there is no competition and you've submitted your 950. What do you expect from that point on? You're given it to the agent. The agent's walked out the door, so I'll come back to you as soon as I can. What do you expect?
Communication.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, there's, time is of the essence, and that's stated in the joint form of general conditions. So you would expect that you would have a reply within a 24-hour period to say that, hey, we've presented it to the owner, they're thinking about it, they need the night to sleep on it.
Yep.
And that may not mean you get an answer or a counter offer and acceptance the next day, but you might get an update to say, look, they need further time to think about it. There needs to be clarity and transparency on where your offer's at.
And a lot of buyers in the olden days used to put a timeline. The seller must accept this by 5 o'clock.
Yes.
And sometimes, in most cases, it was counterproductive because the buyer said, I'm not going to feel under pressure the seller would feel, I'm being put pressure upon by this buyer, yes, I'm offside, and therefore I'm not going to take their deal. So I don't recommend timelines on offer acceptance. The good news, and a lot of buyers don't know this, or sellers don't know, until the contract is finally done, either side can withdraw.
Yes, before it's verbally accepted, and that's a phone call to say, hey, congratulations, Alan, your offer's been accepted. Yeah, you can ring your agent, communicate to them to say, we now withdraw your offer as of now.
Yep. Both owner and buyer can withdraw. And it's probably not a bad idea just to text, as of a certain time, I hereby withdraw my contract, my offer on such and such a property. If you felt it was going too long and there's another opportunity somewhere else, you can, with a phone call, either side, retract an offer or a counter offer. Okay, let's say that the seller says, okay, thanks for your 950, but I'm countering at 980. They would cross your offer and acceptance out. They would write in 980, initial it and sign it. What does that mean to you as the buyer?
That means you've got a couple of options, and that is you can decide to say, I'm willing and able to pay that 980, and you sign in, that becomes an accepted offer. You can keep your price at 950 and go back with a counter offer of the same price, or you can find some middle ground and counter back to the seller to say, look, we're happy to pay 975, and counter back and see what the outcome will be from there.
Sometimes it's important to sit with the agent and say, what's important to the seller? You know, price is obviously important, but sometimes timelines are important, either a shorter settlement or a longer settlement, or raise the deposit, etc. Sometimes there are other factors at play rather than price.
And that's probably a very important question as well when you're first writing the offer, is to ask your agent as a buyer, ask the agent, should I say, as a buyer, look, we might be flexible with our settlement period, or we might think there's a condition on there that might suit the seller, because putting your best foot forward, as we discussed earlier, from moment one, or from when you first make that offer, is really important. You don't know if there's somebody else making an offer. You don't know if in a couple of hours' time another offer is going to come in. If those conditions are suitable to the seller from the get-go, you're definitely putting your best foot forward, or in a better position to negotiate and get the offer and get your offer accepted.
Sometimes you think that by giving a cash offer in 30 days is an attractive thing. The seller on the other side perhaps has got a longer settlement in mind, and is terrified of having to move out of their home in 30 days. So you're thinking you're doing the right thing, giving them the money in 30 days. They're going, wow, we'd actually prefer 90. So have a chat to your agent and find out really what the best way to couch your offer to appeal to the seller, and you might actually do better in negotiating by giving the right sort of terms.
Definitely.
Okay, so final stages. Your offer acceptance, let's say you're the buyer, you've had your offer accepted, you've agreed to the vendor's counter offer or whatever it be. You've now got to get finance and organise building reports. How long to get this stuff organised?
Firstly, there's obviously a deposit that needs to be paid. Generally, that's within a 3 to 5 working day or day period after acceptance. So that's pretty important to get that paid. And I think the sooner that's paid, the better. From there, you obviously need to make your best endeavours. Again, that's written into the joint form of general conditions to get finance. So that is contacting your bank, broker or advisor with regards to getting them a copy of the offer and acceptance, and making sure that they've got all the information they need to make assessment to get your approval through.
And you'll need pay slips or tax returns if you're self-employed. You need to be able to provide as much as you can, because the banks don't process unless they've got all the documentation, do they?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and brokers nowadays are probably used more often than banks. I don't know what the actual stats are, but they're, try and get a relationship with a bank or broker. Broker's much easier than organising a negotiation with the bank manager, because they're hard to find. And even the branch is hard to find nowadays, isn't it? You get your building and your pest controls, the inspection's done. Some people will get their finance done to make sure they can buy it, and then decide that their building reports and whatever else are done after that. That makes sense.
Within a 7-day period after finance.
That's right. That's all they need. The builders and whatever else are generally pretty responsive. They can respond within a couple of days.
Yes.
And once all the conditions are met, let's say you've got your finance done, your building reports and whatever else all done, then you've got to let your settlement agent know, righto, we're ready to settle. We've got settlement agents we work with a lot here, so if you haven't got someone, we can give you some recommendations. We don't have an allegiance or an interest in any settlement agent, so we just work with anyone who's capable and professional.
Yes.
So really, that's using an offer and acceptance. That's the offer process, the counter offer or whatever it be. Once you finally accept it, you've got your contract, and then you go off to your bank and organise your inspections. And 30 days, 90 days down the track, you move into a new home. So we hope that explains the process and makes it easier for you to buy a property.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you.
See you then, bye.